Hey guys, how you doing today? So glad you're here. We got a really cool one today. Very, very different, softer. You'll have to excuse me too because I'm feeling very under the weather today. Got a very sore throat. So I think I did lots of breathing into the microphone and lots of smacking into the microphone because, well, I was just listening. Very lost in the conversation. But Eva Silva is the guest. She's really incredible. She's a wonderful advocate for the marijuana, cannabis, and hemp industries. And before you run away screaming hippie, I would tell you to listen to the podcast. She's a wonderful lady, and she's become a friend of mine over the last year. We actually both worked as consultants for a Colorado-based marijuana franchising company, which never supposedly got off the ground. At least I haven't seen that yet. But all said, she's become my friend, and she's just a really sweet lady. Lives in the San Diego area. Former model, writer, mother. She's an incredible person, and I'm very, very, very happy. She gave me so much time today. So thanks for listening to this in advance. And again, I apologize for sounding and feeling clearly under the weather, but I hope you get some value out of this, and I hope you learn a few things about the industry and discover that, it's not the hyper-liberal agenda that many of you probably think it is. Very, very interesting. So check it out and dig in and rock and roll, and yeah. Right? So much easier to actually have a conversation. The only thing that I tend to do is I tend to look at myself in the corner because I'm a massive narcissist. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so fat. Look at me, I'm so fat. Oh my God.
We're all our own worst enemy. Trust me, I know.
We are. It's terrible. Yeah, and we definitely have to talk about this today, but you being, a former model, you probably still are a model, right? Do you still do work?
I still do. I still act and model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of course you do.
Yeah. Here and there. I've never taken it that seriously. It's just more like it gets me away from my lap because I've pretty much always been freelance, and I've always kind of worked from home, and it gets me away from my laptop and out there. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, what I don't want to see is me, right? Because it's really distracting. Well, I tend to do the whole, I do this thing, right, where I'm lowering myself into
Right.
into the frame. And the fact is it shouldn't matter. I need to be into the mic, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I'm just going to stop acting like an idiot here. View. I tend to, you'll hear this when you hear the podcast release too. I tend to do this really silly, I tend to post everything, so basically everybody's going to hear this conversation, which is kind of fun, actually. No. Well, not necessarily all of it. You'll see. I'll cut it out. I'll edit it. I tweak it, but I love sloppy conversations.
No, it's real. Yeah. I so appreciate that too. I really do.
Yeah. No, that's great. I had a conversation this week with one of the most influential music makers in the world, and it was just an absolute blast. I'm sitting 10 feet away from him, and we just had this really great hour-long conversation, and it just went all over the map. There was almost no rhyme or reason to it, with the exception of talking about his childhood, and so. Well, thank you for your time, Eva. I really appreciate it. And I will tell you that I'll just apologize in advance that I might say Eva. And I think we talked about this on the phone, but it just comes from the fact that one of my close friends' daughter is named Eva. And I'm so used to seeing it the way it's spelled and to pronouncing it that way. So if I accidentally stumble, I apologize in advance.
No, what I always tell people, I've heard Eva, Ava my whole life, and I answer to all three, so it's fine.
Okay.
Don't even worry about it.
Well, that's great. If it was my daughter, it would be Eba. So the Japanese version, right? There's no such thing as a V. There's a B. Eba.
Right.
And then that could be Ebenezer Scrooge, right? So So
I
no,
love it.
really, thank you for your time today. It's funny. Why don't we start with this? I had noticed a post you had made maybe yesterday, and you had mentioned the fact that you were being interviewed today, and that you usually are the one doing interviews. And I
Yes,
didn't know
yeah,
this about you. I mean, you and I have known each other on the fringes for about a year and a half now because of Red Creek Reserve. We were both
right.
we were both consultants with that company, and I'm admittedly I've stepped away from it until they kind of get their poop together, and I don't know exactly what your involvement is, and we don't necessarily have to talk about that, but that's how we met, and so I'm kind of curious. Who do you interview and why? Where does that come into your life and your business?
Okay, so my background. Well, okay, so first off, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous because I am usually on the other side of it.
Boom, boom,
Um,
boom. Come on, let's do it.
yeah, yeah. So the tables have turned
Mm-hmm.
as they usually do in life, but yeah. So I've done. I mean, as far as in the industry, I've done a series of interviews with patients and advocates for hemp, cannabis in general, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
CBDs, THC, whatever.
Okay.
Um, but my background is actually media, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I speak. I mean, I'm a writer. I
Right.
tell stories. I'm
Please.
and so I speak a lot in metaphors and analogies and whatnot. So just putting that out there. But so my whole background, I was a lit major before I got my bachelor's degree. I also got an associate's degree in radio and television, and I was going to change the world with mainstream media and blah blah blah. And I'll just tell this quick little story. My first radio and television class, I remember I walked in the room, and we're all sitting there and thinking we're ready to take the world by storm, and we're like 19, and the professor walks in, who was a former broadcaster, this very handsome older man, very distinguished, walks in, picks up the chalk, because it was chalkboards, not whiteboards back then. I'm not going to say when then was, but
Hey now. Hey now. You're going to bring up a sore subject with me too. And I want one aside here before you continue your story. It's interesting. The irony is not lost on me that you were a lit major. Think about that for a second.
Oh, I didn't even think about
Isn't
that.
that
See,
great?
I should have caught that play on words.
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, you can actually you can actually make a website called The Lit Major.
I might have to do that. That is
Yeah, yeah,
hilarious. Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. So anyway, please tell your story. We were at the chalkboards, and yes, I
We're at
remember
the
chalkboards.
chalkboard,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, so he walks in, he puts a big dollar sign on the board. He turns around and he looks at us and he goes, "That's what it's all about. If you guys," he goes, "I know you guys you got your idealisms and you think you're going to change the world, and you're going to go out there and you're going to produce this, life-changing, world-saving content." And he's like, "You know what? If you can't deal with the dollar sign, get the hell out of my classroom."
Yeah, I believe that.
And we all like looked around at each other and we're like, "Well, who's going to get up? I'm not getting up. You getting up? No, I'm
Yeah,
not getting up."
yeah.
You know. So all idealism's intact. We all carry on. Fast forward a couple years later, I have a student Emmy award for a documentary that I produced it, wrote it, edited it, and edited it in, I'm talking, cut and splice.
Right,
This
right.
wasn't,
Right. You got tape
this
on that,
wasn't digital media.
Cigarette burns.
Yeah.
Cigarette burns, right?
Yeah.
In the corner?
Razor
Yeah.
finger cuts from
Yeah.
cutting and splicing. And anyway, I was very like enthusiastic, and it was a documentary on I always choose like the weighty subjects. And anyway, then I went on to do another one on another really sensitive subject, and I ended up getting an internship
Wow.
at a network news station, ABC station, in San Diego. And I was just like on fire. I was like so fired up on my way, blah blah blah. And it was for the morning show. and live show. And at the end of our summer internship, there were three of us. We each got to produce a segment for the show. And so I contacted my guests, my subjects, whatever, who were in my documentary.
Okay.
And because of the nature of the subject, again, it was a very sensitive subject about sexual abuse.
Oh.
And so a lot of my guests, well, there was the counselor of this program, and then these underage people.
Wow.
That she works with. And anyway, the only reason that they agreed to come on the show was if I wrote the interview questions and the host agreed to stick to the script.
Oh.
Well, of course, she did.
Okay.
She agreed.
Really?
Get my guests
oh,
in
but
the
she
studio.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get my guests in the studio. Again, underage people.
Yeah.
High school students. They're on live television.
Oh my goodness.
She completely disregarded my script. I mean, I get chills even when I talk about it. I was completely disregarded it. Asked them all of the, there's an expression in media: if it bleeds, it leads, which means, you make it as sensational as possible for the most ratings possible, which means the most, back to the dollar signs on the chalkboard, dollar sign possible.
Right. And
I mean, I was just sitting there watching the monitor. I was horrified. These people are crying. The therapist is looking around like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
And it was a short segment, thank God. But they walk out of the studio, and I'm standing there, and it was daggers.
Yeah.
Like they just wanted to kill me, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. I said, they just kept walking. They thought that I was in on it.
Yeah.
And then the host walks out after the show, all perky. So what'd you think?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I think that you should, do things that I can't even say.
You
we're
can
on radio.
No, we're not live. You can say fuck if you want. Excuse my language, everyone who just heard me say it, but I guess I'm trying to say is feel free to say whatever you want. This is actually rated, seriously, on iTunes, this is rated explicit, and not because we talk about anything disturbing or we use tons of foul language. It's just that it's okay. You can quite literally say anything you want, Eva. Really, truly.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm not asking you to divulge names,
Right then and there, I was like, you know what? I cannot do this.
Wow.
And I cannot work in an industry. You know what? The professor was right. It's all about the dollars. And, not that, people can do good things in media, and you can do, but for me, I was just like, it's different now because we have the internet. We can do things like this. We can do things that have a broader, that can reach the market we want instead of the commercial market that we were a slave to back then.
Right.
So anyway, right then and there, I was like, can't do this. I don't respect these people. I want to stab that woman in the neck. I'm not really, but I was just like, you go get in your BMW, and then you come back to work tomorrow, and I'm out. And so anyway, I went back to school in the fall, and of course my classmates in the program were like, you turned down an internship. Well, okay, no. So at the end of the internship, I skipped this because I was so fired up.
You're still fired up. You're still fired up.
They offered me a job.
Oh.
They offered, and I was like, and it was just an entry-level job, but it would have been, corporate news station, entry-level job, on my way. And I was like, you know what? I said, I'm decided to take another, and I was very polite, and I just said, I'm going to take a different direction, and thank you very much for the opportunity. And, thank you. And anyway, my classmates were like, we hate you. You got the internship that we all wanted, and you turned down the job that we all would have killed for. And I'm like, yeah, I did. You're right.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm out.
Yeah, they call people like you a crusader, right? That's the negative term. You're a crusader. Right.
Yeah. Like, who do you think you are? You're all this idealistic and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But so that's, I guess, your original question was why was I'm used to being the interviewer, and that's where I come from. And then, but getting off of that path and taking this sort of very circuitous path to where, what I'm doing now, I'm really grateful. And I just, I mean, I've over the years, as a single mom, dear God, I've struggled here and there. And there've been times when I've thought, geez, I should have just stayed in but in my gut, no, I
Yeah.
always knew that I was doing the right thing. And, I'm loving what I'm doing now with my life. And I wouldn't be doing this had I taken that road.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Do you, I don't want to say you don't regret it because you clearly don't regret it. But how did you repair or did you repair relationships with your friends? What happened after that? What was the next step for you?
Um, you know, I'm still in touch with some people, and I think over time, we were all just really idealistic, 20, 21, 22 year olds, and people grow up and move on, and I left that community college and went to the university, and then I had a whole new group and circle and everything, and I had always been a writer, since I was a little kid, and I ended up as a like we were saying, a lit major, literature and writing.
And you're never gonna forget that.
I love that. That is so funny. But yeah, and I'd like to share actually another another experience that
Please.
um, really shaped my worldview and the path that I took and the path that I'm on. If you don't mind,
No, please. Please.
um, my earliest life memory is, I mean, literally. My first off, my dad was kind of is he's kind of this free spirit, he was kind of a hippie and research scientist. We always had an organic garden,
Huh.
and I grew up in the outdoors, and anyway, I remember one morning I was 3 years old, and we're sitting in a field, again leaning against a tree and watching the sun come up.
Okay.
I don't know if we were camping or whatever, but he reached up and picked a leaf off the tree and held it up to the sun. And when you do that, you can see the veins
Right.
in the leaf. All these little. And he said, and this isn't verbatim. I was 3. I don't remember exactly word for word, but he said something like, "See, do you see the veins in this leaf?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "The veins in this leaf are just like the veins in your body, and are just like the veins that and the energy that runs through everything else." And it was the whole, like, we're all connected, one love.
Right.
And I know this is offensive to some people, but I grew up hunting and fishing.
Oh,
um
yeah.
but and whenever we would go hunting, like, he was very had this sort of very indigenous, culture, sort of, and he would always remind me of the same thing,
Right.
and that we're all connected, and we will give thanks for, and remember that, you're that animal, if you were on a plane in Africa, that that the lion could kill you too, so that
Right.
that you're no better than any of, and he wasn't a trophy hunter.
Right.
We It was sustenance and survival. And anyway, so that message, that's really what shaped my view. And I really believe that is why I'm so passionate about the cannabis industry now, because this is we have receptors in our bodies, in our brains, for a reason,
Right.
with the, and when you study things like homeopathy as well, where it's based on the principle that like cures like, where the energy that's in that particular remedy that might come from a certain stone or a certain plant or a certain mineral or whatever, it it works on your body on an energetic level, because there's something in your body that resonates with that.
Right. 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 What's
And it's the
interesting? Oh, I'm sorry.
same.
Didn't mean to step on your
It's
your point.
Oh, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I agree with you 1,000%. And I think what draws me to your advocacy, your purpose, is that And this isn't going to become a conversation, I don't think, about religion, but I do believe in a creator, right? Regardless of what other people feel, I personally believe in a creator. And to me, the world, the natural world, be it a human being or an animal, in the woods or these trees, if you look at the complexity of the structure, and as you mentioned, the veins, right? It seems to me that there's a reason it's all so similar. It's made for itself. It's made to be, it's kind of like cross pollination, right? We're made to eat from the land. We
Yes.
just are. And I get why,
Yes.
again, I'm not an evolutionist, but I get why people feel the way they feel. I get it. And I get that some science can explain some things. Obviously, there's theories as well. And granted, obviously, if you believe in a God, you certainly have a form of theoretical acceptance because from a scientific point, there's only so much quote unquote proof that there is, right? You can look at things and say, well, they make sense. But I guess my point in all of this is that what you're saying to me makes so much sense to me because it's obvious. It's sitting right in front of us. All these
Mm-hmm.
things that come together, they coalesce. They're very, very similar, and we're just made to sustain that way. And I
Yeah.
mean, and granted, you're talking to a guy who doesn't eat organic because I'm a terrible person. And you know what I mean? I just consume all this. I'm very typical American. I consume so much crap. But I get your point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'm sorry for the long aside.
No,
But
no, no.
I so agree with you. And this is why I was so fascinated with your story from the very beginning, because natural is natural. And I just have never understood, and we can talk about this, and I hope we talk about this, but I've never understood the argument against marijuana or hemp, and then the argument for, say, not tobacco, but cigarettes, right? The idea that cigarettes that have been injected with poison and chocolate and alcohol and
Mm-hmm.
all these things. And then over here you have marijuana, which granted, admittedly, when the THC, gets hot, it becomes a hallucinogenic. But why is this okay and this not? And this is so clearly from the earth. And granted, I get it. People can make the argument against it because then they can say, well, yeah, what about opium? Or what about, right, any of the other hallucinogens that become increasingly powerful and obviously highly addictive. But, and again, again, sorry for the aside, but I agree 1,000%. So finish your story.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I just, and one of my favorite people, I would say that I would point people to as far as learning about our endocannabinoid system, is Dr. Bob Melamede. And I actually got to, I hosted a panel this at the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo, at the second annual one just a few months ago.
Okay.
And he was on the panel, and I was absolutely captivated. And his site is medicaljane.com.
Medical Jane, Jane.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of, Mary Jane, Medical Jane. And he's the former chairman of the biology department at the University of Colorado. He still teaches and researches on cannabis, and cannabinoids, cancer, DNA repair, this kind of thing. And he's just his information. It's very digestible too. He's got some videos and some awesome information on his site. So for anyone who wants to learn more about the actual science and the nature behind it, this is a wonderful, wonderful site. He's just a brilliant man, and and his research just points to the fact that our endocannabinoid system, which again, we're born with these receptors in our
Right.
brain, in some of the fats in our body, in our immune system. We're born with these, and there are cannabinoids in human breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
We create this. We're supposed to have it, whether you get it from, hemp or marijuana or in whatever form.
Right.
It's and his Dr. Melamede's work basically and you can find this elsewhere. I'm just quoting him because I just love him. He says that our endocannabinoid system helps maintain a stable environment despite changes in our external environment. You know,
Okay.
and it's these stresses, whether they're, you know, nutritional, emotional, you know, environmental, whatever. Those are what, you know, damage us in, you know, lead to disease, and that, you know, disease and aging emerge when there's a dysfunction or deficiency in our endocannabinoid system.
Right. Right. So, man, I mean, I love how deep we can go here if we choose to.
And we could talk for
Right.
days, I know.
Right. The technical aspects of cannabis. I wanna. I'm not saying I don't want to go there. We can do that. I want to. Can I go back a little bit? Is that
Please, yeah.
okay? So,
Hmm.
you talk about your earliest memory with your father, and him holding that leaf up, which is a beautiful, beautiful image. Um, where did you grow up? Because if my memory serves me, and granted, you can say, "Oh, Rob, terrible research," but my brain tells me you grew up in the Southwest, like in New Mexico. But I might be wrong. Probably am wrong. So go ahead and tell me where you grew up,
Um,
and then what got you into this cannabis thing. Because was it just the influence of your father to recognize this thing? What drove you to want to know more?
okay, so I've actually born and raised in San Diego,
Okay, see, I'm
and
way off.
whenever I talk about how much time I spent in the outdoors and everything, people are like, "Oh, where'd you grow up?" I'm like, "San Diego."
Yeah. I don't know where I got the New
But
Mexico thing. I have no idea. I'm sorry.
no, I know it's kind of funny, but yeah. So I grew up in San Diego, and excuse me, and I apologize, like I've kind of been all over the map, but I really got into this industry um, really only like 5 years ago. And one of the things that I always say when I do get to speak with people like this is, you know, there are people who um, that I respect so much, and I just want to give big kudos to everyone out there who's been on this path for, you know, years, decades, whatever, longer than I have. And there are people who know more, and people who are out there, you know, doing their thing. And I just want to say how much respect I have for my colleagues and, you know, people who've come before, because, you know, it's a long road, and, you know, we do this because we love it.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I just another one of the things that I love about this industry is the people that I get to meet. So, but no, you know, again, I think I was kind of drawn to it because we'd always done everything naturally. I mean, my younger son's been on antibiotics once in his whole life, you know, and
Awesome.
just we just do everything. And anyway, so about 5 years ago, someone reached out to me, you know, and I was aware of marijuana and hemp and CBDs and whatnot, but he reached out to me about doing a blog, and I was like, I would love to. You know, it was just kind of like a healthy lifestyle kind of blog with, you know, hemp and marijuana as well. And, you know, one thing led to another. I worked with the awesome Diana Oliver
Right.
on her co-producing last year on, you know, the next in her Hempsters documentary film series. Unfortunately, we didn't get full funding, and, you know, things kind of were on hold, and, you know, we all kind of had to move on. But she's done amazing work, and that film really was groundbreaking with, you know, Woody Harrelson's story of, you know, the backbone of that film was Woody Harrelson's story of planting hemp seeds on the lawn of the DEA, and, you know, his subsequent acquittal.
Sure.
But you know, there was just, you know, that movie was really about kind of the early pioneers, and we, you know, we presented that year at the Marijuana Investor Summit and the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo, and I went on to do some writing in the industry, and excuse me,
It's okay.
and let's see, and then, gosh, what happened next? And then I honestly, I think of the one of the things that really compelled me to get more involved was I had a friend who was someone I went to high school with, my same age, and dealing with cancer. And I saw him just use, and his wife is a doctor,
Okay.
medical doctor, and she's like, do whatever you got to do. You know, they're both very, very, very down to earth. And he healed. He didn't do chemo, didn't do radiation. He did plant science. I was baking some healthy edibles for him and some other friends, and that definitely was part of his healing as well. And then my younger son, actually at the time, this was actually a huge part of what compelled me. My younger son was born with he had a stressful birth and emergency C-section.
Okay.
And he ended up being born with some language processing issues.
Okay.
Nothing, not autistic, nothing extremes, just he's brilliant.
Okay.
It's just the way he takes everything in, and he's a musician.
Awesome.
Good, no surprise.
Yeah.
But it's the way he takes things in, and anyway, all of that caused a lot of anxiety, and a lot of anxiety issues, which further. It was like dominoes falling, basically. When he had trouble sleeping, always woke up 4 or 5 times a night, which meant most of the time I was up 4 or 5 times a night. And the poor kid is like, he's trying to grow into being a man and dealing with all of this, and we used just a lot of different natural approaches with varying degrees of success. And people would always tell me, you should just put him on blah 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 pharmaceutical.
Right.
And I'm like, no,
right.
it's not going to happen.
The path of least resistance, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a slippery slope, and we never went there. And I have a really good relationship with my sons. I'm so grateful for that. And we were just standing around talking one evening out in the yard, and my older son, who was 20 at the time, he goes, "Mom, why don't you just let him start smoking weed before bed?" And I was like,
wow.
I said, you know what? Yeah, why don't I? Wow. Exactly.
Wow. See, half of the podcast audience just turned this off. They're like, holy crap. Sorry. I'm so not into this girl. I'm sorry, but my brain just says, well, the reason, and I mean, I love this so far, and this is great. So thank you for sharing that, and we'll get going further here. But I just got to put this aside. I think the struggle with the acceptance of cannabis, marijuana, hemp, what all the all the names of it, etc., is that we really don't have quote unquote conservative advocacy. We have liberal advocacy.
Exactly.
Right. And so, but the thing is we're humans. I mean, we're all, why is it a political issue? It's so silly.
Right. It's either that extreme, or it's like, it's either, well, you're a stoner and you're irresponsible and you're this and you're that.
Well, no wonder you're into it, because your dad was a hippie, right?
Right.
That same. Oh my goodness.
And and my dad, we don't want to say he wasn't like dropping LSD and stuff. He was like this nature loving scientist, but
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. He just wanted to run naked in the forest. What's wrong with that? Right? I mean, I want to do that. I would tell you, Eva, I would do that if I wouldn't get in trouble. I would. I don't have any issues with that. I would. Podcast listeners, come to Snoqualmie, go up in the hills in Tokol. I'm going to be running naked tonight. Right? But I mean,
that is so funny.
I think the problem is we always have to legislate, and we've heard the term legislate morality, but I don't think it's moral or immoral to use marijuana. It's a thing. It's a what's the word? I almost said a process. It's not a process, but it's you say it. I mean, heck, I don't even know what to say, but to me, marijuana is an alternative. It's an alternative, but it doesn't mean it's the alternative in the sense of like, oh, it's this weird thing over here. It's an alternative.
Well, and one fair? Thing that yes, and this is probably a really good juncture. And well, first of all, let me just say, and it wasn't, and my son's not even now, he's 20 years old now, my younger son, not a stoner.
Right.
He honestly, he'd prefer to use, some CBD drops at bedtime most of the time.
Okay.
It's not a gateway drug. It's it's a plant medicine, frankly, just
Okay.
like garlic and well, I mean, we don't have, you know what I'm saying. Like it's a natural, and there's a reason why we have CBD receptors, basically.
Right.
But yeah, so that, when I saw when I saw my 17-year-old son who had been, unable to sleep and all of this, and if you don't sleep, you don't do well the next day, and I homeschooled him and all this stuff, like all of these issues on top of each other. Boom! All of a sudden, he's sleeping through the night and feeling good about himself and feeling confident.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah. You're a good mom.
and
Trust me. That's a great thing.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah. I mean, that's,
thank you, and
that's really cool. You gotta sleep, man. You just gotta sleep. And, again, I mean, I know I keep taking this aside, and so I apologize for the interruption, but the CBDs. So can you explain the difference between that, taking the droplets and say literally smoking? Because what I've always heard as a complete, I mean, I'm an idiot really about marijuana or any hemp or cannabis type product. I mean, I've smoked it 5 times in my life, and it always made me deaf. And as a musician, it just freaked me out because I was just
oh yeah,
I couldn't hear, my ears would ring, and so I never enjoyed it as a buzz or anything like that. Um, but I'd always heard that the only way you get a quote unquote high from it is when it's heated, similar to like the idea behind brownies or again smoking
right.
it. Taking the drops, are they simply an organic type food for his body, or is there a high that's created from that?
No, okay, so here's the difference.
Okay.
Anything sourced from hemp, you're not going to get high.
Okay.
Marijuana has THC.
Okay.
Anything from hemp, whether it's oil, seeds, whatever, 0.03% THC or less.
Okay.
So there's absolutely no high.
Wow.
And you can take all of the CBD products that you want, all of the CBD. You can also get CBD products from marijuana with the THC extracted.
Okay. Okay.
And and there's some argument that is more potent, and it's again, I'm the communicator and the storyteller. I'm not like into the science, and I follow the science as closely as I can, but the science and the politics, we all have our own little sort of niche in the industry. But
Right.
yeah, so you're not going to get a high
Okay.
from hemp. And one thing that I should clarify is really the reason that marijuana is illegal today is because hemp threatened multiple industries.
Okay. Like paper,
It's
textile industries, is that
yes,
okay?
yes. I mean, for instance, William Randolph Hearst, newspaper conglomerate,
Yeah.
whatever.
Billionaire.
Obviously, he was making a heck of a lot of money in that industry. Hemp threatened it. So
Right.
that's when the whole smear campaign came out, and reefer madness, and oh my gosh, marijuana is the worst thing ever. So let's just, so that we can illegalize both. So
Right.
1938 Marijuana Tax Act, and boom, sudden, it was all illegal. And
Okay.
hemp was the biggest agricultural crop in the country at one time. I mean, you could pay your taxes with hemp. If the
Wow.
government came to you, if you had land, and the US government came to you and said, you will grow hemp on your land, you could not say no,
Okay.
or unless you want to go to prison.
Right. Right. Wow.
So, it's money. It's just all about money.
Wow. Yeah, I'd always assumed it was. I admit to not knowing the Hearst story. It certainly makes sense given the fact that he was a newspaper magnate, right?
Yeah,
And clearly when you have a lot of money, you have lobby power, right? Which
exactly.
is exactly what he did to shut it down. I imagine he was a key component, and there was probably more than just him. It probably wasn't just
Oh,
him.
yeah.
But my thinking with marijuana was just that, and this is going to sound terrible to compare it to, so please forgive me in advance. But to me, marijuana was like prostitution in that people wanted to enjoy it, But the fact that the government couldn't take a tax hit, it couldn't take taxes from it because it could be done behind the curtains. To me, marijuana can be grown, right? As far as I understand, if you have the right lighting sources, just basically the right environment, you can grow marijuana anywhere, right? And tobacco, it's not the case. I mean, it's a crop that is grown in a very specific place in the world. And so they could, in a sense, keep track of it. Where marijuana, to me, and granted, again, this was my own theory, was that marijuana could be grown in Rob Jones's garage, in North Bend, Washington, and the government could say, "Well, you can't grow that, and you can't sell that because we can't tax you. We don't know if it's almost like it's under the table money." And that's what I always thought was kind of the driving factor. But you're telling me that might have been a component, but the main component was the actual industries.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, okay, hemp was grown, literally has, I believe, been grown on every continent except Antarctica.
Makes sense.
I mean, it can grow anywhere, and different, obviously different strains grow different in different environments, just like anything. But over 25,000 industrial uses.
Right.
And you can use every part of the plant. It's
sturdy.
I mean, it is, and you can grow it with basically, less water, no pesticides, and just in the example of trees, because deforestation is a huge issue. Why would we cut down something that takes 20 years to grow?
Right.
Or at least, right?
Right.
When you could grow 2 hemp crops every year.
Wow.
And you can, like I said, you can do it with less water, no pesticides, and more. I've got a couple figures here. Let me see. It was as far as the number of crops and whatnot. It needs, cotton needs more water. It needs twice as much land to equal the productivity of hemp. You can get, I believe it's about an acre of hemp produces about 4 times more usable product than trees.
Wow.
Than the same acre of trees.
I imagine
it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. I imagine indigenous peoples were building homes out of it as well, figuring out ways to weave the product, not just creating roofs, but probably, is it sturdy when it's grown the way it should be grown, similar to bamboo? Is it durable like bamboo where it's very, very rigid?
It is, and you can actually make hemp concrete.
Wow.
Out of
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can do it. Let me. I need to bring something up here, but it's and it's carbon. It actually sucks the carbon out of the environment, and over time, concrete erodes, degrades. Hempcrete just becomes more dense.
Wow. It's like it almost sounds like Adobe, like it would be mixed with things and mashed and then creating bricks out of it. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. And I have a really good friend with a hemp build. I know actually a few people in the hemp building industry, and we're there's one project we're trying to get going in another country, and I can't really speak about that right now, but you can build it. You can build these homes for less. Like I said, they're not only carbon neutral, but carbon. What's the word? It actually sucks carbon out of the out of the air.
Okay.
Obviously, fireproof, and it's just there's no reason when you can use literally every part of the plant.
That's insane. I
Yes.
love that I'm learning this because I purposely, as I had shared a moment ago, I purposely did not research this because I wanted you to tell me.
Good.
It's like, okay, Eva's telling me, now I'm going to go online and look it up and make sure she's telling me the truth.
Well, yeah, it's literally, it goes back over 10,000 years. It was our first agricultural crop. It was the largest crop and most important industry until literally last century.
Wow.
And
what overtook it? Was it cotton that overtook it?
You name
Corn?
it. I mean, cotton, lumber,
Right.
corn. I
Right.
mean, it's
Right.
just it's ridiculous. And
Right.
here, but if you want to talk about it, I mean, we can talk about the environment all day. But if we want to talk dollars, which is what really, unfortunately, makes people
Right.
stand up
Right.
and
Right.
listen,
Absolutely.
the US is the largest consumer of finished hemp products in the world. So here's the irony: we can't grow it here, but in a few states yet. I mean, we're making progress, knock on wood.
Wow.
But, okay, so let's import all these products, pay all these other countries when we need jobs here.
Right. Right. Right.
And God knows, I mean, there are farmers, farms have over the last 20 years, how many, I don't even know the number of how many farms have shut down
Wow.
because, the farmers need an industry. Indigenous people need an industry. For example, well, anyway, so let me go back to the dollar amount here. The US hemp based product consumption is expected to reach $1.5 billion annually by
Wow.
2020.
Wow.
Shouldn't we have that money in this? Can we have some of that here in this country too?
Right. Right. Well,
Why are we?
yeah, no, that's madness. It's interesting. You know what's going to happen, Eva? Donald Trump is going to hear this podcast, and then he's going to build a hemp wall.
Oh, God.
Sorry, everyone. I'll
Okay.
edit that out.
If Donald Trump is listening, I got a few other things to say. No, sorry.
Yeah. If Donald Trump is listening, I have just monetized this podcast. It's back to the dollars, baby. It's back to the dollars.
Oh my God. Oh, don't get me started.
Can we talk about a few other things too? Are you open to
Absolutely.
that?
Yes.
So you're an author, a writer. What books influenced you? What sort of formed your childhood or your desire to do that?
Wow.
Shocker of shockers. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to, honestly, my earliest influences for writing actually came from. So my first record album ever was
Ooh,
James Taylor's Greatest Hits Volume 2.
not a
I
bad
still have it.
choice. Not a bad choice
And
at all.
I know it was a gift from my dad, of course. And I used to sit and in my room and listen to that. And it's poetry, and I would look at the lyrics written down, and so I would say that my earliest influences were music and lyrics. And then, my father always read to us. He read me and my sister. I have a younger sister. I remember him reading like Watership Down, which was this, really meaty novel.
Yeah.
And he read to us every night, not and not little picture children's books either. So
Clearly, he read you Watership Down. It's a nice dark story.
it definitely is, but it's
Hey, Dad, would you read me
again,
Flowers for Algernon before we go to bed? I really want to be disturbed. Can we watch Eraserhead while we're at it?
Oh my God.
That's awesome, though. I love parents that do this. I mean, my parents did the same thing, and this isn't about me, so I'm not going to go on that tangent. But I love that people do that. I love that you gave marijuana to your son. I love people that are willing to say, I'm going to buck this sort of societal trend that says you got to do X to be a good parent. You don't. You just have to be a good parent. You just have to love and give and influence and be as positive as possible in the process. And you're going to make mistakes, but just influence and just give everything and be present. Put your freaking phone down at dinner,
And my thing always with that too is people say that you learn as much from your children, if not more, than they learn from you. And dear God, I totally believe that.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, I've always been of the mindset that, you chose me and I chose you. So let's learn whatever we have to learn.
Right.
It's not an accident that you are my sons and that I am your mother. And how are we going to best do this journey? And since they were really little, I've told them the same thing over and over. I've told them, you can always tell me anything you want. Talk to me about anything you want. I might not agree with you. I might not like what you're telling me, but I'm going to have your back.
Wow.
And I've told them those things over and over and over again. And the fact that my son he was 17, the fact that he wasn't already smoking pot,
Yeah, yeah,
or doing, dear God, doing whatever else,
yeah,
17-year-olds normally do.
yeah,
He had never even tried it
yeah,
until, you know,
yeah,
till we had that discussion. And,
yeah.
and the fact that my older son was able to, you know, ask me that frank question, and we were able to talk about it. And, I think that if we, as, and I mean, dear God, I'm not like the ideal mother. Don't get me wrong, because we've,
Right.
how parenting is.
Yeah, I do. It's tough. It's
It's
really,
a
really
roller
tough.
coaster
Yeah,
ride.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, there are things that I haven't done so great too. But I'm grateful that my sons and I have been able to, have these open conversations like this. And I think that, you, whether it's around, how we best live healthy lifestyles. I don't even want to say whether it's about smoking marijuana, but it's part of an integral healthy lifestyle.
Right, right.
I'm not saying for everybody, obviously.
Hmm.
Not everybody should be a vegan. Not everybody should eat, whatever. We all have our thing.
Right,
But in my opinion, because our brains and bodies are meant to, receive CBDs and THC, and because it has a positive effect on our body, for us, it
right,
is part of a healthy lifestyle.
right.
And I just think that when families, communities, colleagues can have these open conversations instead of judging and proscribing what you must do and what you must not do and what is right and what is wrong. And I mean, um, that's part of a bigger conversation, of course. But like I said, I'm a writer. I think in big
Yeah.
terms.
No, this is really interesting though. I'm intrigued because the fight against the stigma of what cannabis is or does, and granted, I'm using this as a broad term, right? Hemp, cannabis, marijuana
Mhm.
is very similar to the fight for the stigma, or say I should say, the fight against the stigma of mental illness. And
Yes, and your last podcast,
yes,
I was going to
Kevin
say, I
Lynch,
was
have you heard
so
it?
moved by
Oh,
that.
good, good, good.
Yes.
And so I'm going to connect you two because I think you need to talk.
Okay.
You are both extraordinary advocates, and it's interesting because all the things you're saying really make me think about what Kevin had shared, which is there's, excuse me, everybody. Uh, it's it's not to say that the stigma is 100% across the board unfairly founded. Obviously, there are always people that abuse things, and there are clearly on the mental illness side people that have done terrible, terrible things against others. But the problem is with the mental illness like, that Kevin talks about, which was lifting that mask off, right, removing that, and let's just go straight at the problem because the problem can be addressed, and then we don't have to stigmatize these people anymore. We can literally just say, "Hi, I'm Bill." It doesn't have to be he's Bill, the crazy guy who happens to take
Right.
drugs. He's just Bill, right?
Right.
As you heard in the podcast, I didn't know Kevin had a mental illness. I
Wow.
had no idea. I mean, I didn't know any. I mean, I haven't seen the guy in forever. We've known each other 30 years, but that story just freaked me out, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the same thing, and why I wanted to interview you today, as much as I'm clearly not doing a very good job at it, is that I
Yes, you
wanted
are.
to
This
hear
is
the
great.
same things. I wanted to hear what am I missing? What are we all missing? Right? You get down to is it CBD? I'm sorry. CBD receptors?
CBDs.
CBDs.
You said,
So to me, it
yeah.
sounds like it's a puzzle piece. Like our bodies, you talk about receptors, our bodies are designed to receive this. And
Hmm.
to me, it's like our brains require fats to produce, right? I mean, to burn. So our brains
Right.
operate and function correctly. It seems to me that CBDs need to be received into our body to maintain a level of health. It's almost like
Yes.
they've been
Exactly.
unplugged from us, and hemp actually puts the plug back in.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Am I on the right path?
Yeah, exactly. And that's it maintains it, like I was saying in the work that Dr. Bob Melamede has done, his he and other, people like him, that's what they that's the bottom line basically, is that it returns us to this state, this sort of stability. And that's, there's a site called reset.me as well, which it goes into, different alternative health measures. And
Okay.
that's what it's about. It's like, our systems operate at this, optimally at this certain level. And cannabis, whether you're talking hemp or marijuana, help our bodies to return to this ideal state.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. It literally means to me that we are missing a key component of what makes us operate efficiently. We're missing it.
Yes.
And then what do?
Yes.
We go to the store, and we don't walk the fringes of the store where, granted, there's not a lot of good food at grocery stores, but that's where the good food is. It's on the fringes, right? You have to walk.
Exactly.
You have to walk through the crap to get to the good stuff on the edges.
Yes.
But most of us shop in the middle. Most of us stop by the Kraft macaroni and cheese aisle.
Yes.
Well, I should say most of us. Me, I admit to liking that. I really love the dollar Totino's pizzas too, but it's because they're $1 instead of see. Of course, there's the thing that's evil about this country. It goes back to the dollar, right?
Exactly.
It goes back to the dollar. That the things that are the worst for us are the cheapest, and we'll consume them in bulk. And it seems to me that we need hemp. And we need to consume products that work for our body, right? That increase our energy levels, that give us mental acuity, right? But we're doing the opposite, right? We eat foods that push our insulin levels through the roof, and then we want to take a 3-hour nap, and then we just all we do is suck that weight into our cells. And right, and as the guy who did P90X says, we have all this goop in our body. There's a reason we have double or triple chins, because we have goop in there, and then our body holds the water in because we're so dehydrated as a nation that we can't process the junk back out. So I'm sorry again. I'll apologize one more time to the listening audience for my asides, but this kind of stuff pisses me off, and I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it.
We all are to some degree, and that's the thing with hemp seeds. Just for example, we're talking about nutrition. They contain the ideal 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, and the essential fatty acids. Obviously they're essential because we need them, and they're literally the most nutritious seed in the world. So you get the oil from the seeds as well. They're the perfect blend they're the most digestible protein on the planet. They have the EFAs, the GLAs, gamma linoleic acid, antioxidants, amino acids, fiber, iron, zinc, keratin, phospholipids, phytosterols. Basically every vitamin and mineral that you need, and enzymes.
Right.
And again, you can use all of these different parts of the plant for everything from construction to cars. Look up Bruce Michael Dietzen cannabis car.
That's so crazy. It's so awesome.
It really is.
Amazing.
And this is why, so a couple of months ago, several people I know, the California Hemp Alliance was in need of a new president, and people were reaching out to me, and I was just like, kind of like what I said earlier, dear God, there are people more qualified than I am, people who, have the political mind and the, all of this. And I thought, you know what? No, this came to me for a reason. I can, I have a great team, got someone who's up on all the politics and up on, all the science, and we can't all do it all.
Right. And
so I finally was like, yeah, all right, let's do this. So I'm really looking forward. It's the site is cahemp.org.
Okay. So it's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to, helping with the awesome team that we have. We also have Tony DeVera. He is a grad student at Cal Poly Pomona, and he's in the process of getting basically the research permit, and that will be the first one in California.
Okay.
And we're aligning with also the Industrial Hemp Research Foundation in Colorado, and to help sort of align our efforts, because Colorado is ahead of us. Obviously, not they're not growing like Kentucky and whatnot, but and that's what this industry needs too. It's a new industry, so it's easy to kind of vie for you know position, and oh my gosh, and this and
Right.
that. But that's one of the things that I really love about the core group of people that I am aligned with. It's like they're people who know there's enough for everyone. It's if we do the right, just do the right things, and
Right.
then the industry will grow. We'll all be able to make a living. All of these things will fall in line because we're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Right. It sounds to me too, based on what you're describing too, that hemp is such a prolific thing. And in other words, it can grow faster than we can consume it or use it. Correct?
Oh,
I mean, right?
pretty much. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can probably hit our homes with it, right? We can light it. I would imagine if you were, I mean, granted, maybe I'm on a completely wrong track here, but there's a lot of different fireplaces out there. Like a pellet seed fireplaces, right? And
Yes.
I
Yes.
imagine hemp could be something that could burn similar to a pellet seed. And I
It
imagine,
does,
given
and
how
it
strong it
burns
is, it would burn
longer.
long. Correct, like cherry wood or something,
Yes.
or like bark.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really
Exactly.
cool. So I imagine you are asked to be the face of the advocacy because you were a model. Do you think that's part of it? And I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but you're a very lovely lady, and
Well, thank you.
and I imagine that does help. I mean, we all have our strengths. Clearly, I am not a model, but you've got a little Brooke Shields thing going on, and that's a good thing. So it helps to have the face. I think people at least take you seriously. You're not the grizzled vet from 1968 who represents an era that nobody gets anymore, right?
Well, and I appreciate that, and I suppose it's kind of an awkward thing to talk about, but I suppose that's, I don't know. All I
You
can
knew
say
I
is,
wasn't.
again,
You didn't know I was going to do this to you. I just
no, no,
I
no.
couldn't wait to get to this one too.
Again, back to my dad. So here's another thing.
Yeah, yeah,
He we grew up with my dad telling me and my sister, "You girls are beautiful from the inside out."
absolutely.
So what that always told me was, and of course it was shocking to be in my 20s and realize, like, oh my God, the whole world doesn't think like that.
No, yeah, 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 yeah,
Like, I grew up a little naive in that regard.
yeah,
No, but
yeah.
so that just delivered the message, like, take care of what's on the inside first,
Absolutely.
your heart, your brain, be a good person,
Yep.
and then the whatever's on the outside will take care of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, and and yeah, I've acted and modeled since I was 13.
yeah, yeah.
But I never took it that seriously, for that reason,
Right,
because it's like, I could always hear my dad going, well, what, wait, but I have all of this on the inside,
right.
so for me, it's always been more about, I remember having this conversation when I was a kid with a really good friend of mine, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to use whatever God gave me, whatever, in whoever I am in the inside, however I am in the outside. I want to use all of it for a greater good.
That's awesome.
And so, to me, that wasn't like, and I'm not criticizing anyone's journey, but for me personally, that wasn't about, pursuing acting and modeling. For one thing, I'm only 5'2", so I couldn't have
Wow,
gone that
you're
far to model.
little. I had no idea. I don't. It's funny.
Yeah.
You know how photographs, you can never tell, right? And I've never met you in person.
Right.
And photographs tend to make people look taller. I think it's this weird assumption that if you're in a model space, you must be 5'8" or taller. I just assumed you were
Right,
tall.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why I've never, I mean, I've done like lifestyle stuff and commercials, and and I still do, but for me, it's I've always been freelance,
Yeah.
except for about a year out of my life. And it's just, I spend so much time alone at my laptop that it's like, oh my gosh, I get to go to an audition and like talk to people and like
Right.
put on makeup. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well,
So it's just, it's fun, and and when it pays well. So it's,
yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. I guess what I was trying to address was that we all have something that allows us to speak into the world, right? And if you
yes.
have this clearly powerful advocacy for the hemp industry in general. It helps, nobody wants to talk about this because it makes them think, oh gosh, there we go. But the
No,
fact
you're
is,
right
it does
though.
help to have
It's
somebody who
real talk
who
right now.
stands out.
Exactly.
You
You're right.
stand out. You can go on TV and people sadly will take you seriously because of how you look. It's the
Well,
weirdest,
and
saddest thing, but it's a good thing too because you're getting the word out, you know?
well, you're right. And I'm not like, there are different sort of faces of this industry, and there's of course the like stoner image that people have held for years. And then there's, like the girls in tank tops and short shorts at the conventions and stuff
Right.
with dabs and okay, cool.
Right.
Because you know what? Everybody appeals to somebody. And I'm more like the artsy serious girl and and so cool. Everybody has a draw to a certain audience that receives their message.
Sure. Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Well, I hope you don't
yeah.
mind me asking that question. I just, it's something I thought of and noticed, and it just made a little bit of sense to me. Um,
No, and I respect you for asking that because as much as like you said, as much as we all like don't want to talk about that, it's human nature.
yeah, yeah,
It,
yeah,
it really is. You're
yeah,
right, and it's valid, and anyone who says it's not is lying.
yeah, absolutely. I just want truth in all of this. So you have this connection to the entertainment and sports communities, and I'm curious how
Yes.
that came about. Was that because of your advocacy, or was it because of your modeling, or was it a third thing that I don't yet know?
No, so that was I'm so excited to talk about this part too. I'm working with Boo Williams. I'm
Awesome.
project managing, yeah.
He's my
And
friend
he
on
played
Twitter.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he is just fantastic. For anyone who doesn't know, played for the New Orleans Saints. His, just Google his story, Boo Williams, or look him up on social media. But his story was, of course, the CTE, and yeah, it's a really compelling story, and I can actually send you his media kit because he'd be an awesome guest on the show.
Yeah,
I've talked with you
yeah,
about that, but
yeah.
anyway, so we're fast forward. He was working with these athletes who were kind of in the same boat he was, and it's a very sad thing. That's another conversation I'll let him tell you about. But um, long story short, again, we're launching a line of THC products, a line of CBD products. He's, I'm helping him with, me and his team are helping with like speaking engagements and, more advocacy. And one of the things I really respect about Boo is that he's not just an advocate, he's an activist. He's out there, feet on the ground, helping people, talking to people. He has a huge heart, a big personality, and he can talk with the homeless guy in the street like he can talk to the CEO, and that's why he's so effective. And he's really his motto is saving lives and changing minds.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
overall company is Black Ghost Enterprises, and we're also starting an agency to help other athletes who are in the industry, getting them that's part of the problem too. Is these athletes, not just football players, they retire, and then it's like unless you go into scouting or coaching or something, it's like, what do you do?
Right,
A,
right.
a lot of them, not everyone, of course, but it's a huge lifestyle change,
Yeah,
and to make that transition, it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without support,
yeah, yeah.
and especially if you're dealing with the head injuries.
Yeah, I have a really close friend who's an ex NFL player, Pro Bowl guy. Not going to name him just because he hasn't given me the right to do so. But great guy. I mean, was one of the greatest stand up guys. Super sweet. And he and I had a conversation about a year ago with that, discussing this very thing. The fact that these guys, they've done one thing their entire life,
Right.
and they do it at such a high level, and the world gives them that adulation, and they're like clearly in their realm, and then it stops, whether it's because of CTE or some other issue, right? Just a, traumatic knee injury or whatever. And they stop and they literally have no other skills.
Right.
And for the people that have suffered CTE, which, for people who don't know, is basically it's a degenerative disease of the brain caused by repetitive brain injury, repetitive brain injury, like what I can't even think of the word all of a sudden. Concussions. Thank you.
Yeah.
It literally changes their behavior. It's degenerative in the sense of, you got to think of it, dying tissue. And if your brain is dying, you start acting different. You start thinking different. These guys, they're left with nothing in a sense. And people think, oh, well, you made $8 million in the NFL. Well, one, not necessarily. There's a lot of league minimum guys. And like everybody, we all tend to sort of live to, the income we receive. So most people don't have any fiscal literacy. And so these guys, they come up, they go through college, they get a $5 million signing bonus. And well, I mean, P. Diddy has an entourage.
Right.
So I can afford an entourage now. I mean, it's naivete, it's ignorance, it's all these things. And then they get injured and they lay down on a railroad track, right? They want it over. So I love what Boo's doing. I can't wait to talk to him. I hope we can put that together.
Oh yeah, you'll love him. He's just, everywhere he goes, people, and plus he's, this huge physical presence. He's 6'5", so
that's a big dude.
Yeah.
And so, he's got a big smile and a big loud voice to make up for that size as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he draws a crowd for sure, and and he's got a really beautiful message. So it's a good. And he reached out to me. We just connected over projects and similar connections, and we just started talking and about a certain project they had going on at the time, and with my media background and my connection with the industry and whatnot, it was just a good match. So helping him move forward with that. Very excited.
Do you have any friends in the industry that are not hemp or cannabis focused, that aren't necessarily on the advocacy side, but they're just your buddies? You just bumped into cool people.
Oh yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. That's cool. Definitely.
They're just people
through the years. Yeah, I know.
I was talking to, I love telling this story.
They make their living else in other ways.
Yeah.
For sure.
I got to tell this story quickly. In 1995, I was buying tickets to a Mariners postseason game, back when the Mariners actually went to the postseason, and I was in West Seattle. And I walked into the local record store, where a certain Eddie Vedder used to hang out all the time. And
oh my gosh!
Yeah, and so one day, I'm standing there in line
on Hollywood Boulevard.
No, this is in this is in West Seattle. So this is a place called Easy Street Records. So there's the shout out for Easy Street, which is a killer old school vinyl. I mean, it's killer. It's a great place. And Eddie's hanging out behind the counter, and I'm going in to buy tickets because that's a Ticketmaster location at the time. And I walk in and I see him, and he's a famous guy. I don't want to bother him, and I don't know him. And I walk up and buy my tickets. And when I leave, I just give him a nod and I say, hey, 300 level, because this is when the Kingdom still existed, right? It was 300 level, total nosebleed seats. And he just looks at me and he goes, cool, man, cool. And I just thought that was so bizarre. But here's the reason for the story. A couple weeks later, I was in Easy Street again, and he was back behind the counter again. Apparently, he must have been friends with the owner or somebody. And so, I don't know. I figured because I talked to him once with tickets in my hands, I could qualify to walk up to him and talk to him. And I walk up to him and I said, what's it like? What's it like to be famous? I mean, what's that like? And he said, man, the only difference between you and me, and I'm totally paraphrasing this, but the only difference between you and me is I do what I do on television.
Wow.
And it's so true. I mean, if you get down to it, and I don't know Eddie, but if you get down to it, he's a surfer who happened to be in one of the biggest bands in the world. And he's a performer, but he's also intensely private, or you'd see him everywhere. You'd see him on Twitter. I mean, he's just that guy. He's just a dude who just happens to be seen on television.
Yeah.
So we're weird in this country. Our love for celebrity is kind of over the top, and I admit it catches me too. So I mean, that's why I asked the question. I'm curious just who you bump into, because I like famous people too, right? I want to talk to famous people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's so funny. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that background with
Yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah. It's a weird world, man.
It
Well,
is.
so before I let you go, so where's this all going? I mean, clearly, again, let's go back to the advocacy. That's like a power word in your life. But where is this taking you? What is there sort of a hope for the future that you can, get in front of Congress and have the conversation? I mean, what are you doing to change the world? And do you think you'll ever actually have the impact that you hope to have?
I think so. Yeah. I'm really I'm I'm like I said, I love what I'm doing. I love the people I'm doing it with. And I just think that really in this industry you have to just, it's so new. It's still new, and it changes every day. And my motto has always been, my mom used to ask me, because I would always come up with these, to her anyway, crazy ideas. Well, and her response was always, well, how are you going to do that?
Uh-huh.
And my response was always, I don't know, I'm just going to do it.
Right.
And that's still my answer.
Right.
I don't know. We're just going to do it day by day.
You're leading with the
And
spear and the flag, right? You just got it out there. You're like, I dare you to stop me.
Pretty much, yeah. And and it's really refreshing, I have to say, to be, like I said, I've been freelance most of my life, and to have it's challenging at times. I mean, I'll admit it. But to be like part of a couple, several different teams now, instead of sitting alone at my laptop writing all day, and that um, it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's exciting, and no one can do it all by themselves.
Yeah.
And you aligning with good people is what really makes things happen. And where do I see myself? I want to produce more content. Like I said, working with the Industrial Hemp Research Foundation, with like I said, Tony DeVera, Cal Poly Pomona, with Boo. I'm also working with a team of women, on their website is Becoming Unfuckwithable, and it's basic. I love it. I love it.
Sorry,
it's snarky,
Jesus.
but yeah, sorry. No, but that's really
Oh.
their message is just, kind of, it's really about creating the life that you want instead of the life that, punching a clock and, creating, sort of falling into what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And creating the life that you want, basically, and by way of doing that, helping other people create the lives that they want and changing the world. I can't even go into all of it, but there's a homeless program, and there's this and there's that. And so I just think that it really is about aligning with like-minded people, knowing what you want, maybe not knowing how to get it, but aligning with like-minded people, and sort of concentrating those efforts and putting that energy out there and being very intentional about it. And yeah, I just want to help move the industry ahead. I want to see Indigenous people. My sons are half Native American.
Okay.
And there's so many reservations that need an industry, including my sons don't come from a casino tribe.
I get it.
Hemp would give them a sustainable industry and employment, because about a month ago I went to the White Plume Hemp Victory Celebration in South Dakota, and that's the Pine Ridge Reservation. Alex White Plume, the DEA twice rated his crop.
Yep.
And these are people who live in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's gorgeous land, but unemployment is, I don't even know what percentage, 80, 90%.
I believe that.
Because there's literally nowhere to work.
Yeah.
And this industry would give them food, food and an income from a sustainable crop.
Yeah. If
And they have every right to have this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not as a Native American, if you're not a casino tribe, you're actually at the end of a dead end road. Quite literally.
Pretty much.
The
Yeah,
reservations, I hate that term, but the reservations are
I do
parked
too.
at the end of dead end roads. And I've driven to a number of them over my life because of curiosity. A few years ago, I was driving through South Dakota, and when I came up through Wyoming and then into Montana, I thought, I've got a little time before the sun goes down. I'm going to stop at Little Bighorn, where the battlefield was.
Mm,
And right
wow.
and right before you get to the battle, I've never cried so hard in my life. I don't know if anybody listening has ever been there. There's ghosts there, man. I mean, it's full on spirit world of sadness. It's the darkest. It is literally the darkest, most uncomfortable place I've ever been. It was mind blowing. But right before I got there, I drove by Crow Agency, and I don't know if you've ever been there.
No.
But Crow Agency is, the quote unquote reservation just prior to where
Oh,
Little
okay.
Bighorn is. And it's a garbage dump right along the freeway. And I literally took photos as I was driving because I just couldn't believe it. It's a garbage dump and people live there. And it made me so sad that it amplified my anger when I got to, Little Bighorn to the battlefield and the monument there. So I agree with you 1,000% that we have to decriminalize this. Clearly, we're on the path and we're getting there. But I think the only thing people are thinking about is the whole pot thing, right? They just want to be able to smoke pot on the street. They want to be able to get high. They're not thinking
You
about
know,
the uses of it. I mean, granted, maybe this is just my perspective, but I want the whole thing to be released. Make it a viable industry. Allow it back to be a viable industry and let these people have the thing that they're good at, get back to it. You know what I mean? Become the
well,
farmers.
exactly. And I think that a lot of it's just simply education, and that's why that's one of the things that I want to do and why I want to produce content. And because, most people, when I tell them, like I said earlier, the only reason that hemp is illegal, or I'm sorry, yeah, that marijuana is illegal is because hemp threatened multiple industries.
Right.
People are like, wait, isn't hemp marijuana? Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
They're both cannabis,
Yeah.
but and people, and we just don't know. You don't learn that at school.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
There's a
and
lot of
I
things we
think,
don't learn at school.
well, yeah, exactly. Don't get me started on that
Yeah,
one
yeah,
too.
yeah. The right things, right?
Yeah,
Money, sexuality, all these things. We don't learn anything that actually counts. We learn crap.
history,
We
racism.
yeah, we learn how to hate. We learn how
Who
to
helped fund the anyway?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now we learn how to count incorrectly. This new crazy new math thing they got going is just
Oh gosh.
it's madness. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought. I apologize for interrupting.
no, no, no. That's okay. And yeah. So I mean, that's essentially, I look forward to having the time to write what things that I want to write, and we're all busy making a living and juggling multiple things, and as things grow and change, I really want to. I want to write the things that I've always wanted to write instead of what I've been busy writing to pay the bills. And including things that, in the industry, and essays, and talking with people, and I just think that there's so much good work to be done. And
Yeah, no, that's great. I cannot agree with you more, and I will tell you that I'll make every effort to connect you to some extraordinary life changers. There's some people out there that I think will be very valuable for you to help you spread the word. And vice versa, I believe you'll be able to help them. I think once an advocate, always an advocate, right? Once you start realizing that you're doing things for others, right? And that's the point of this podcast, even though I rarely seem to address it, is the idea behind the name Rockstar Superhero was that I was actually thinking to myself, so this sounds a little narcissistic, but let me explain. I grew up as a professional musician. That was my thing. And I did that for 25 years. And then 2003, I joined the normal workforce and I learned how to, sell insurance and how to deal in finance and how to buy and sell houses and all these things. And Even though they made me some money, they were clearly not my passion. And I longed for a way that I could affect the world. I always thought, I was going to be this famous musician, that I was going to leave a legacy. And then it occurred to me that, I have the skill set, and maybe in this situation with the podcast, this is something, look, this is absolutely, work in progress. I'm learning how to do a podcast. I'm learning how to talk. I'm learning how to interview people without stepping on them. So my apologies for interrupting you when I did.
No worries.
But to me, the thinking was, okay, I love the idea that when people are born and then they're raised, they're kind of formed by the world around them, their family, their friends, all those influences, and they become a thing. And most people who are successful, and I'm using that term relatively, are successful at that one thing. They kind of blow it up. So if I'm a drummer, for example, I go out into the world and I play rock drums and I play on a whole bunch of different records and I become this thing, whatever that is. And hopefully, at least being American, I want to be a famous version of that, right? I want to be the drummer everybody knew. But I love the idea of leaving that business or industry and saying, okay, I've achieved this thing. Now where do I go? And to me, I want to be a superhero, right? I serve the world for the last half of my life. So the first half of my life is for me, and the last half of my life is for others. And that's the concept, at least, behind this. And so interviewing you, I look at you completely as a superhero. Yes, you've done things, to sustain yourself, and you love, modeling, and you love writing, and you love being in that public space, but you are clearly an advocate for the world. They just don't know it yet.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's my desire to give you that voice, to increase that voice. And so what I would tell you before I let you go here is, I would love you to come to Seattle when you can. And I know that maybe sometime. And who knows, maybe I'll beat you to it and come to San Diego. But I want to connect you to my group. So I have something called the Rockstar Superhero Institute, which I guess I am now advertising on my podcast.
I saw that.
Yeah. And it's a very, very high quality, high purpose driven business professionals. They are all people of extraordinary capability. Kind of the best of the best. You might have heard of groups out there like Vistage, where they get together CEOs and they network and they mentor and they problem solve for each other. This is the same kind of idea, and not to knock Vistage, but without the elitism. Okay, so the idea is we bring an Eva Silva in, we bring Kevin Lynch in, and we participate together to improve and increase the power of our messages, and we go out and we help each other affect each other's space, right?
I love that.
Yeah,
That's what changes the world.
Yeah, I would love you to be a part of that. So we can talk about that offline. But that's my offer. I want to do everything I can to increase the legacy, because I get what you're doing here, Eva, that this is a legacy thing. This isn't just for you to make yourself feel better, like, I'm just going to continue my dad's legacy. But no, you're actually stomping your foot on the ground and you're making little waves, and hopefully you're making actually big waves. So that's my offer. And I'm so honored that you were on the podcast today. I'm super thrilled, and you've been a really fun time. And thanks again for letting me step all over you at times. So my apologies, but you've been nothing but awesome. And man, I'm just gonna put it out there and hope everybody will hear it.
Well, thank you. And I just want to say how much I appreciate it. I'm, again, I was nervous being on this side of it instead of on your side.
Sure.
So I feel like I rambled a bit, but, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to aligning with you and, your circle. And I just, I applaud you too for doing good work and, trying to touch and change people's lives, because I really believe that's why we're here.
Yeah. I mean, I love people. I mean, I don't know what to say. I love people, and I think you do too. So
absolutely,
we're going to do our thing, right?
Amen.
All right. Well, be well, sister. You're a rock star and a superhero, and I'm really proud of you, and I thank you for your time today, and we will connect soon, okay?
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Eva. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.